Hey, what's up, guys? It's Randall from OddsJam back with you today to answer some of your frequently asked questions that I get from many users whenever they start using our product or are, somewhat new to the product. So I'm just going to run through these very quickly. And if you have any other questions after watching this video, you can contact me, Randall at oddsjam.com. So the very first question that I get asked a lot is, how do I avoid being limited? And as you can see, there is currently a player prop that is up, and it is between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's an arbitrage opportunity. Um, the number one way to get limited would be to take this prop and throw down $1,000 on one side and 830 on the other. Doing this is going to get you limited quicker than any other thing that you can possibly do with arbitrage betting. So I would avoid this at all costs. I stick to around 100 to 125 on player props, sometimes less, just depending on what the prop is and what the percentage is. So, oftentimes I will talk to people who get limited within the first couple of weeks, and I ask them if they were hammering player props, and 99% of the time they say yes. This is not something that I would suggest doing. So if you want to avoid being limited, either avoid player props altogether or bet them for much smaller amounts. That is basically how to avoid being limited 101. If you're betting $1,000 on player props, expect to be limited very, very quickly. I was able to make over $15,000 since May arbitrage betting here in Illinois, and I stuck to 100 to 125 on player props as a max bet. So keep that in mind. Also, I've created a video on how I made $15,000 since May. You can check that out. There's some other tips and strategies that I go over, to make you a successful user of this product. The next question that I oftentimes get asked is, when doing plus EV betting, um, why am I down? I've made 100 bets and I'm down. And this goes right back to player props. I will always ask them, are you betting on player props? And more often than not, the answer is yes. Player props can be, very, very difficult to have success with when plus EV betting. There's just a lot of factors that go into it. If you see on the screen here, you've got Patrick Beverly, over under 1.5 made threes. The plus EV bet is on the over 1.5. It's plus 230 at FanDuel. It's only plus 181 at Pinnacle. So, I mean, the plus EV bet is the over 1.5. But, let's say, for example, this game is a blowout. Maybe Beverly does not play as much. Um, maybe they're losing by a lot, so maybe he doesn't play as much. There are just a lot of factors. Maybe he gets injured in the first quarter, and he has no chance of going over the 1.5 made threes. So that's why I avoid player props. It can just introduce a lot of variance. I spoke with a customer who had great success with the player props early on in his first week of using this, and then he hit some variance over the weekend, and really put a dent in the amount of money that he had made. So, not to say you can't bet these player props, they're a lot of fun to bet, but I would not make this your sole focus of plus EV betting. We do have users that find a lot of success with player props, but for the most part, this is just a way to introduce a lot of variance and um, you know, get you started, on the wrong foot, or, get you started in the hole. So, the next question, what is the OddsJam Perfect Line? You'll see this. I mentioned, Pinnacle earlier. This is just a rebrand of the Pinnacle line. It's the same data that Pinnacle has. So, plus 193 on Pinnacle. That is what the number is for this over 3.5 goals in this soccer match. Plus 181, like I mentioned earlier, is the Pinnacle line on Patrick Beverly over 1.5 made threes. So when you see the OddsJam Perfect Line, this is just the Pinnacle line rebranded. What percentage of arbs do you hit? So, when I started out, I would not bet anything under 2%. The reason I did this was because I only started out with $3,000 as my bankroll. So I was not wanting to constantly have to move money around. So I would suggest hitting anything over 2% whenever you are placing arbitrage bets. As you can see, the one that was up earlier is now gone. These player props do move very quickly. Um, Arbitrage opportunities move very quickly. You have to be ready to react. This is not a passive income. If you get an email alert and you go check the arbitrage opportunity, say 2 minutes later, you're too late. It's not going to be there. You have to be quick. How much money do you need to start out is another question that I'm asked quite often. As I said earlier, I started out with $3,000. The more money you have, the more money you can obviously make. I would say on the low end, you need at least 1,000 to 1,500 to start out and actually, have some success. With a low bankroll like that, it's going to be very difficult. You're going to have to grind your way through it. Um, I didn't mention this earlier, but when I started arbitrage betting, with the 2% and above, I would stick to $150 to 200 per side. As I said, I made over $15,000 since May doing this, and it was an absolute grind. Only betting 150 to 200 per side, but so far I've not ran into any limits outside of just some small limits on FanDuel. If you're going in, like I said, betting thousands, you're going to quickly be limited. And then, one of the last questions that I get asked is, how many sports books do I need? And the short answer to that question is as many as possible. I'm in Illinois, so I do not have access to as many sports books as, say, someone in Indiana or New Jersey or Pennsylvania. But the more sports books that you have, the more opportunities you will have access to. So, in short, get as many books as you can. If you want to keep your books limited, say you don't want to have 7 or 8 books, I think that the the best books to get are MGM, Barstool, FanDuel, and DraftKings. So, those are just some of the frequently asked questions that I'm asked quite often. So I wanted to just do a video, to be able to direct some people to this. And like I said, if you have any other questions, you can email me, Randall at OddsJam, and I will be more than Randall at oddsjam.com, and I will be more than happy to answer those for you. Thank you.